And we're back. Yes, indeed. This is Kenny Stapler joined with Che and Bobby.
Yeah, boy.
Every single week from the top of the crow's nest. And we bring to you this week the illustrious BD Williams. BD, welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey, guys. How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Before we get started, I got to ask you, does the BD stand for Billy D? Is this Billy D. Williams on the air with us right now?
No, actually, my name is Blake Donovan, so I go by my middle name mostly. Only my family calls me Blake, but it's funny, when I started writing for Silver and Black Pride a couple of years ago, both those names were taken, so I had to pick something. Mm-hmm. So that's why it kind of stuck like that.
So you went with Lando Calrissian. I respect that. I'm a big fan. Big fan. I hope you're drinking.
Yo, real quick, BD, because did you ever, were you a fan of the show Martin?
What's the show?
The show Martin with Martin Lawrence.
Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean,
of course.
No offense, but the first time I heard Kay say BD Williams is gonna come on, I was like, BDB.
Hey.
Shout out, Pam.
We're drinking some Colt 45 in your honor right now. Just to let you know, I'm just playing. We're drinking that Almanac Moonraker Time Bender collaboration.
Oh, yeah.
But
it's delicious too.
Less of that, more Raiders. BD, welcome to the show, man. Let our listeners know where they can find you and what you're up to these days.
Okay, yeah. So I just got on Twitter maybe a couple years ago. Been covering the Raiders, breaking down Raiders film. I was writing at Silver and Black Pride, and now I just started out at Just Blog Baby.
So BD Williams, former Division I athlete, high school football coach, film analyst, and sports writer, currently covering the Las Vegas Raiders. A lot of my listeners, I would say a lot, but a few of them actually hit me up behind the scenes because they follow you on Silver and Black Pride. Notice you haven't posted in a little while. I know there's some changes over there at SB Nation. Are you comfortable? Can you tell us what's going on with SB Nation? What kind of changes are people to expect? Those that have been following Silver and Black Pride, what's going on over there?
Yeah, well, I was just a freelancer for them. I wasn't an employee, so I didn't sign any kind of non-disclosure agreement. So, I'm just going to tell you guys what they're telling me. Basically, there's a California law that restricts independent contractors how much they can work for a company before they need to be paid full-time and given benefits and things like that. So we were all put on a restriction, how many pieces we could write.
Wow.
And still be paid for it. So that's kind of just what it is. They haven't taken away my contributor status with the website, but I just won't be paid for anything that I contribute over there. So that's why I kind of moved over to Just Blog Baby, and I'm glad they brought me on.
Yeah, and this goes back to some legislation that was recently passed in California that would have required SB Nation to furnish these guys with benefits and all that. So, SB Nation's like, we ain't trying to do all that. If you want to write, you can write. But if you're freelancing, we can't take care of everybody. And so it's a business move. It has nothing to do with anybody's performance. As we know, BD does great work. We've mentioned him on the show several times before. But congratulations on landing with Just Blog Baby. That's a great outfit, and hope to see you do well over there. So all of you that have followed BD over at Silver and Black Pride, now you know he's at Just Blog Baby, so you can still get that same great content. It's just a different spot. It's a different .com, and he's on Twitter if you're following him already. I'm sure you guys will pick that up. But let's get down to business, man. Let's talk about the Raiders here. First and foremost, a lot of controversy, a lot of opinions flying around over the last couple years, heating up a lot this offseason as rumors are abound. There's a lot of blame to go around when your team hasn't posted a winning season for 3 years and decades prior to that. So I know I'm opening a big can of worms here, Mr. Williams, but in your analysis, what has been the top weaknesses on this team in the recent past?
Well, really the biggest weakness is the linebacker position.
Yeah.
And, some people are kind of they're down on Paul Gunther. I think Paul Gunther's actually solid. He has some good schemes that I see from week to week. But I just really think that the talent at the linebacker position really restricts what he's able to call and how effective his scheme is. So I don't really understand why the Raiders haven't made that a priority in years.
Right.
Years.
Right.
It's been basically since Kirk Morrison and Thomas Howard that the Raiders have had like serviceable, average to above average NFL linebackers. And so that's really just one of the biggest problems there. A lot of people talk about the wide receiver position. I don't think it's too bad. I guess the depth is probably pretty bad, but it's really the Raiders have some guys like Darren Waller, Hunter Renfrow. These guys can win across the middle. Mm-hmm. But and I guess Tyrell Williams was probably brought on to win outside. Mm-hmm. I think the foot injury probably hurt his chances winning outside. He stopped winning, like the go routes, some double moves that were outbreaking routes up the sideline, things like that. Never really looked comfortable in contested catch situations in 2019, and that's really where the Raiders are hurting right now on offense. I would say is their ability to win outside the numbers. And I mean, that's a hard thing to do in the NFL. It takes, some really elite wide receiver play to find guys who can do that consistently. That's probably the biggest ingredient on offense that's missing. And I mean, let's just be honest. There's a lot of holes on this team. So I mean, if I'm only picking three, but the younger players on this team, they're playing pretty awesome. For rookies, maybe if you want to put Maurice Hurst and Colton Miller and, guys who are in their second year. But most of the veterans, they're just kind of like Jags, just another guy out there. Yeah. And so at some point, the Raiders need to have some veterans who, are added to the mix that can make a real impact on this team. Obviously, guys like Rodney Hudson, Trent Brown, they're doing their thing on the offensive line, Richie Incognito. But outside of that, we saw the Raiders bring in LaMarcus Joyner. He really didn't make an impact. He had probably a disappointing season. But even if you asked him, he'd probably say that. So, the Raiders really don't have some veteran players who can make an impact. So I would say that those are the three areas.
I got to disagree with you. I think LaMarcus Joyner made a tremendous impact. All of it was negative. Negativo.
Yes.
Pretty astute there. I mean, I agree with the points that you make. Those are definitely weaknesses. You mentioned linebacker. Looking at your recent mock draft, or at least as of last week when I was writing up these notes, you have the Raiders picking 2 LBs with their first 3 picks.
Damn.
It wouldn't be the offseason if Raider Nation wasn't clamoring for a first-round linebacker. That being said, sell me on Bond and Brooks and who you have going in the first and third round, respectively.
Well, I mean, first of all, I'm not huge on mock drafts. My editor, asked me to do one, so I just did it. Zach Bond, he's a linebacker out of Wisconsin. Not a lot of people know him. He's not a really hot name right now. But if you watch him, turn on, a full game of his on YouTube. There's a few of them out there. Mm-hmm. You're going to see a player who can blitz off the edge. He's got a lot of bend. He's a speed rusher. He's a twitchy guy. He's a guy who can drop into coverage. He's got fantastic movement skills for an edge rusher. I think he's a sleeper. I'm hearing a couple people who I respect that are like, the draft nicks in the draft community saying, hey, this guy's actually probably going to be a first-round pick. Mm-hmm. He just isn't getting a lot of media love right now. But I watched him. I'm honestly shocked that he's, not talked about more. So Zach Bond is someone that I think is going to be a really good NFL player. He's kind of like a modern NFL linebacker. He's 6'3", 245 pounds. He blitzes. He covers. There's a lot to like when you watch him. Mm-hmm. And that's just kind of the player that I'm hoping that the Raiders get. I don't know if that's necessarily something that Paul Gunther is looking for, mm-hmm. but, we'll see when the draft rolls around. And I think this is actually a good linebacker class to be linebacker needy in. There's a lot of different flavors. There's some guys who are really good in coverage. There's some guys who are really good against the run. So, there's different directions that the Raiders could go in probably at linebacker, even into the third and maybe even fourth round, and get a guy who's an impact player. At least in one phase of the game.
And that seems more likely to me. I mean, we've been clamoring for a first-round linebacker for years now. I think what was the last one? Was it McClain? Was he first rounder?
Rolando.
Yeah, Rolando McClain. All he ever did was suplex a Charger.
and we cheered him for that.
We did.
We cheered him for that.
Yeah.
Bro.
Man, we had the quick.
But it was all downhill after that.
Yeah, that's all. That was a quick hit, for sure. And I like that. I like this is deep because I think unless you can get a marquee linebacker there, I really don't see the Raiders going linebacker in the first round, just based on prior tendencies. And I know a lot of that's changed. I know we got a whole new regime in there, a whole new front office, but I'm just going to stick to what we've seen. Yeah. But the depth of the linebacker class gives hope. I was also talking about how last week with the defensive line that we have now, and if you potentially add in a free agent like Chris Jones with Paul Gunther's scheme, all the twists, the stunts, it's really on that defensive line to open up the holes for the linebackers to shoot through. If you're talking about pass rush, I'd really like to see somebody that's adept in coverage, though, a guy that's sideline to sideline. No, I'm not talking about you, Ben Heaney. I'm not talking about Captain Caveman and all those projects. I want a certified, bona fide sideline to sideline guy that can hit, that can cover. We need a jack of all trades. We need a Swiss Army knife in the middle of the field.
Don't you slander Ben Heaney.
Yo, real quick. So you would see a guy like Bond going in that second first round pick? Is that kind of where you would see him getting picked up by the Raiders if he does get picked up?
Yeah, I mean, I watched as many linebackers as I could. I probably watched around 30 linebackers. I think that he is a pretty special player just off of watching the film. Obviously, things like the combine, and we got to see how fast and how high these guys can jump. And
right.
There's a lot of extra stuff that goes into it. But just off of what I'm seeing on film, I think that guy's a pretty special player. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a first-round pick. And so if the Raiders are there at 19, they want an impact player, I think that there's definitely worse directions that they could go in than this Zach Bond kid out of Wisconsin.
Right.
That's good. That's good. Get that Badger in there.